not familiar with it, the Small Business Breakthrough Program is a program. I would say it's a video podcast that we do on a monthly basis. I have the privilege of interacting with a number of really smart individuals that are here to support small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs who are sharing some of their lessons, and we cover a variety of different things. We do that live the fourth Thursday of every month at 11:30. We have different guests, and once that's completed, we put it on our YouTube channel. So if you're not familiar with our YouTube channel, I encourage you to go ahead and check that out, because there are currently 44 different editions of the Small Business Breakthrough up there. And when we finish this one, we are going to be putting up 45 because we are recording this particular session. So, Otto, thank you for being here today. This has been, I said we have 45 sessions. This is the 45th session. Otto is really probably the first person I wanted to talk to, but, I kind of said, well, let me get this thing up and running, and let me make sure that we're a little bit better. We're strong of what we're doing, because this is an important guy, and I didn't want to take and have something that wasn't what we wanted. So I'm really excited about this. Otto's been a great friend and partner of us at the Small Business Development Center and Columbus's small business community. So Otto, when we take this opportunity, if you'd like to kind of introduce yourself and let people know what you've got going.
Well, first, I want to thank everyone here at the Small Business Development Center. I've not only been a partner and consultant, but almost 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, I was also a customer. I remember when you were housed in the Chamber of Commerce. And I want to say to everyone here, I want to say congratulations for showing up. You see, folks, I don't know a lot of you. Some of you I do know. But what I do know is that you're already doing the things to be successful in business. It's a cold morning. You've pushed through an uncomfortable situation to be here. You're willing to do things that other people won't do. You're dedicated to continual learning. And finally, you didn't wait for this to come out on YouTube or on Facebook. You came into the room with others to build relationships. And regardless of what your business is, those are 3 or 4 things that are going to be a big part of your success. My story, I think they had a description of it somewhere, but essentially, I was born and raised in Columbus. My family had been here for over 80 years. And I come from a family of small business people. Now, when I got out of school, I said, hey, I don't want to do what my grandfather did, my father did. I'm going to go do something in corporate. And I started off my career that way. But what I found was I looked to my ancestors, and it really encompasses the spirit of business ownership is an opportunity to serve. So anyways, I left my corporate job at a corporate law firm. I bought my first business in 2001, a company called E.E. Ward Moving and Storage, which was one of the oldest African-American businesses in the United States. And it had gone down to the 5th generation, had dwindled down a little bit. So my best friend in life and I bought that business, grew that business from about $200,000 up to about $7 or $8 million. Then I sold out. Then I got into, back in 2013 and 14, because of my love of small business. I was one of the first operators of, what's called coworking now. It used to be called executive office. And so I had my own business solutions center. And I continue to run that business, servicing over 250 to 300 clients, virtual offices, mailboxes, rental rooms. We answer phones, we set appointments, we do all kinds of things. But because I know, and because I've experienced that no one does this alone. No matter where you come from, no matter what your education is, no one has a successful business alone. And I was fortunate enough, in addition to, the SBDC and other organizations or whatever, to have good mentors, good organizations, good peers, informal things that could carry me along the way, that I could bounce things off of. And I also, through my relationship with these organizations, I became, sometimes on a paid basis, most of the time on a volunteer basis, I became a business coach and a business advisor, working through this organization, working through the Columbus Urban League, and other Rev 1, all kinds of things or whatever. And that was my way of, giving back. About a month ago, I got a call from a company, a small business that I had started advising 10 years ago, and I was on their original advisory board. And they say, Otto, I just want to tell you, hey, thanks for everything you did. We just sold the business. I said, great. Tell me how you feel about it. So they say, hey, it's very rewarding. It was so much hard work, et cetera, okay? We didn't talk about the money. I read in business first, they sold the business for $80 million. And this was a minority business in Columbus called Live Easy. What's your next question, sir?
Well, that's great. I want to hear more about that. So through your journey, of becoming an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur, moving from, moving in storage to executive office, and you've been involved in a number of other things too. You may not have been the primary, but I know you've been involved in a number of other things. I guess would you call yourself a serial entrepreneur, or just this is what you do and you're just going to move forward?
Well, a little bit of everything. Somewhat serial entrepreneur, somewhat advisor, somewhat deal maker, somewhat connector. Yeah. One of the things that I enjoy the most is helping people connect with those that can help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, I think that's critical. So when you started moving and storage, because I remember when you did that, I remember you as an attorney and then moving into that. Tell me how that was. I know it had already was up and running, but tell me how some of the early days of that. What were some of the things that you had to face, that you had to deal with, that you learned from?
Well, it started off, for me, in order for us to fund the business, get a loan, I had a trusted partner, my best friend from early on. He got downsized out of corporate America. I was still working or whatever, and so we partnered to buy that business. But in order to fund it, we needed somebody that had the financial wherewithal, et cetera. And so we bought it from the family, and we started off with 6 employees. We went in there, we looked at them, they looked at us. They were, who are these guys? And we just had to quickly learn what our business was, who is our customer, and what we want this business to be for ourselves. And I think that is something a lot of people forget. You'll get a lot of advice from people. We see things on TV, on the internet, Shark Tanks, etc. But at the end of the day, I always tell a lot of the people that come to me for advice is, what does this business mean to your family? How will it affect your family? And what is your vision for that? And we wanted to be, one of my things, I wanted to be a diversified businessman. So we took the approach that we also spun off into some real estate and other related things. And that's an area that I spend time in now as well. But in the early days, I remember there were many things to overcome. Even though it was a known company, it had fallen out of favor to a certain degree. And as we approached various organizations around town, it was starting over in many ways. I remember it took us 7 or 8 years to get the first piece of business from Ohio State University. Okay, it didn't matter what minority programs they had or anything like that. It took 7 years. But once we got in there, we just kept growing it, using the relationships, pushing forward, and it became $1 million customer for the company. But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to what I was saying. You just have to have that determination. And a lot of people, they aren't patient. These things don't happen overnight. You know, I sit here and tell you a story of 200,000 to 7 million, but that's over a 15-year period with help from a lot of people, a little bit of luck, and a lot of determination.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. The patience is an issue. I think for a lot of folks that are at that startup phase, they want to start, and maybe they have a vision of what they want to go to, but they don't realize that I got to get from here to there to get there. And I think some of them get wrapped up into, hey, this is what I want this business to look like in 3 to 5 years, and they think that's where they got to be right now. And they don't put the pieces in place to be able to do that and have the patience, but also the ability to execute on the different pieces that they've got.
And that's very important. You know, we all can have goals in these businesses, but for a business to be successful, particularly if you have limited funds, you're going to have to do it. You know, you're going to have to do everything, and nobody likes everything in the business. And how much that you embrace the basics, embrace the boring, and are willing to do these things, that's going to be a big part of your success.
So when you started that, or you started the executive offices and different things like that, you talk about connections and, you know, folks that can assist you, kind of, you know, we talk about mentors, advisors. Go a little bit more into that.
You know, first of all, we as small business people, sometimes you're heroes, sometimes you might even be looked at as crazy or not a whole lot. But you've got to, one of the things that I've always found attracts people to either utilizing your business or sharing with others about your business is showing your passion for that business. Because I will tell you, you never know where your next sale can come from. When you go to these basic business classes, sometimes they talk about the elevator pitch, okay? And you might laugh about it and everything like that. But I can think about a client that I got because I saw somebody in a grocery store and I was able to quickly tell them what we did. Pop, pop, pop. I didn't know that they had influence over that spend in their company. But relationships, and not just relationships, but actionable relationships. And then when you get those relationships, putting yourself in a position that you show folks that you are dependable, ethical, honest, and hardworking. It may not pay off today, but it can pay off in the future. You don't know where the next customer comes from, or not just the customer. And I warn people, I always say there's that old African proverb, when you enter the room, bring the biggest basket you can. Because one person may be your next business. One person may be your next advisor. Another person may introduce you to a vendor that can save your business money. And so we don't come in these rooms and start sizing people up and everything like that. As they say, you know, everyone you meet is better than you at something.
You know, I think that's great, because you don't know who's out there. You don't know who you're talking to. And you need to be able to at least articulate what it is you need to do. You know, yeah, there's a value to having an elevator pitch, but you don't need the elevator pitch every time. I mean, I'm guessing that when you met the person at the grocery store, you didn't say, okay, wait a minute, I need to start with this, and I need to hit all these things.
Well, I mean, how you doing? Well, let me tell you, about it. Yeah, I'm working really hard in this business. Oh, well, what is your business? Boom, 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 boom. Okay. And I'm surprised, and I think that many of you have been surprised. How many people do you know at church, or you're sitting out at your child's ball game or whatever, and they don't know what your business is, or you don't know what they do or whatever. It's we got to get past the day where we're afraid to talk about what we do, because I do believe generally people do want to help,
So let's take let's kind of jump ahead a little bit. So we've talked about this before, and you've been really helpful for a lot of our clients as it relates to some of these types of things. Understanding the numbers of the business, obviously that's critical. Can you share a little bit about that and what you think some of the most important pieces that an entrepreneur, as the business owner, needs to understand about their numbers?
Okay, so accounting and bookkeeping can be one of those drudgeries of business. Okay, it really can. Let's not fool ourselves, but it's really the lifeblood and the most critical thing. And many folks, when they think about the bookkeeping or their numbers, they're focused on the sales or the profit and loss first, then they go to the balance sheet, then they go to the cash flow statement. It probably should be the opposite, which is, how is the cash coming through my business? How much cash and money do I have available or access to? And then how does the profit and loss statement look? It's also very easy to say, I don't know, people I've run into like, well, my accountant takes care of that, or my bookkeeper takes care of that. You really do need to dig in and have a good level of knowledge for your bookkeeping and accounting. Again, going back to that time, none of us likes to think about the pandemic. And we all know the result, where Black and brown businesses didn't get as many PPP loans or other things like that. When they really dug into it, it was a couple different things. One, some of it was lack of relationships. We have a tenuous relationship with the banks. But another big factor, which I found as I was counseling some of the businesses with their grants and other opportunities, is people did not have the basic financials ready to apply for a grant or a loan. There's many resources out there. Again, this is not something that most of us learn in school. This is not something that most of us learn at home. But there are resources out there like this organization that can get you up to speed and help you with that. So again, as I talked about in the very beginning, it's really getting down to, basics. You got to be at least able to execute on the basics of your financial life of your business.
To that point, if an individual small business owner wants to get a loan, wants to get financing, and your point about them not having number of them not having the financials prepared or understanding that to go for some of these PPP loans or EIDL loans, but let's just say a traditional loan, they want to go for this. My experience is that a lot of folks, especially if they're startup, they have the idea and they're really excited about the idea, and then they think, well, I got to run into the bank and talk to the bank, but they don't really then have an understanding of, either what they are doing or what they want to do, and they can't say it in financial terms. So if you go talk to a bank, that's kind of what they're looking for. Then they don't get what they want from the bank, and then they start saying, well, this bank doesn't lend, to startups, or, I don't have the history, or they don't want me to come and deal with them, but the conversation they had with the bank, they weren't prepared to do. So how do you recommend, especially on a startups phase, that they start thinking about the financials and then tie all of this together? Because I think it's really important to understand, okay, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, but then tie those financials in so that they can actually have a good, strong, coherent conversation with a financial institution.
Well, as the old saying goes, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. And so, many of these, bankers, other organizations and things will take the time to see if your business is bankable, as well as how you can get bankable. Okay. Again, when I was working in the grant review process, many of customer that I spoke to, I talked to them about, hey, I think you need to get some, professional assistance here to get your financials, together. But I think between organizations like this and the many, many, many bankers, credit unions that competing for your business or competing for your future business, you can, if you're willing to engage, get some free looks. And that's something that I've done before. They always talk about, hey, go to the bank before you need the money. And that's a technique that you can use to find out if your bank is going to be, if your business is going to be bankable. And again, for most small businesses, the bank, the credit union, various loan programs, there's very few grants. That's going to be your best source. Many of us don't have the relationships to go out there and raise private money or anything like that. And that may not be best because, there's a saying that debt is cheaper than equity. Again, if you had a business that was, you needed $100 and you have 50, okay, and you took your 50, you borrowed 50, you took your 50, somebody else gave you 50, and then you sold for 200, your partners, okay, yeah, you got 100 and they got 100. But then if you borrowed 50 from the bank and you sold for that same $200, okay, you pay the bank back their 50 and you're keeping 150. As a simple example. So, debt, which is an important part of the growth of many, many businesses, is cheaper than equity, let alone all the legal and regulatory problems associated with taking money from people. So learning how to go out and get a loan is very, very important. And I'll tell you, just from my experiences, whatever, I've been turned down for many loans, but I always have tried to ask why or what's important. And the answers have been varied. Sometimes it's been, well, we really don't like that line of business. We think that, we looked at your last 2 quarters, you're running a little bit too tight. You're paying yourself too much. Anything might come out that you can learn in order to improve your situation.
Absolutely. And you're going to have the opportunity to see a number of our SBDC advisors today speaking about different aspects, but the individual that's coming up next is Ellen Harvey. She's going to talk about our Kiva loan program. But Otto, known Ellen for a long time. I mean, she does really, really remarkable things in helping people prepare to go to the bank, get their stuff pulled together, because she understands that. And, if she's asking you to, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, you can be assured that X, Y, and Z is really critical for you to take it to the next level. So, with that, so we talked about financials, we talked about kind of the funding component of this, but I want to take a little bit of a step back here to say, I know that in the past, I'm sure you've gone through a variety of trainings and different things like that as a small business owner. But I also know that you've been involved in a number of kind of peer-to-peer type of things with other business owners. So can you talk about the value of this peer-to-peer where you're actually interacting with other business owners, and maybe, you know, some of the things here in town that folks might look at?
Yeah. First of all, business ownership is very lonely. Okay. There's not a lot of people. It seems like there's a lot of people out there, but there's not a lot of people out there doing it. Your family doesn't understand it. The people at church don't understand it, etc. So when you have the opportunity to convene with other business owners, you'll find that others are going through the same issues, whether it be things that make you successful or things that are challenges. And so meeting with peers is extremely important. Okay. And again, I talk about bringing that big basket. I remember when I started, in one of my businesses, I live in the downtown and have lived in German Village, mostly central city around here. Somebody invited me once to a peer group or a tip group that was in Lewis Center, okay, that met at 8 in the morning, okay? All right. So I had to drive 32 miles every Friday. But the amazing thing is I would drive those meetings. I heard things from people. I had a trusted group of people that learned about my business. They were selling my business to other people. I was able to help them in their business. I used some of their business as customers. They used some of my business. They've used some of my business services. And again, it goes back to that doing things other people aren't willing to do. But it really was those power of peers. And there's other groups that I've been a part of, Vistage, and there's EO and some other things, and many, many smaller organizations. It is something very helpful because, again, that business ownership can be very, very lonely. And we all, we talk about larger businesses. They've got board of directors and advisory boards and other things like that. Hard for us as small businesses to do, especially like when you're first getting started. And so you have the peers. And then you have the opportunity for, mentors. Okay, that's the other thing. Those who have, walked in your shoes before. And you might have a mentor, a financial mentor. You might have a sales mentor. You may have a mentor for other related things, because nobody knows it all and nobody does it alone. So I say both, not just peers, but also finding mentors. One thing that I've always told and advise companies on to, let's say regardless of what your business is you're going to be surprised that sometimes these folks that you think are your competitors can also be your allies. Okay. Providing you, hey, where do you get that lettuce from? Hey, there's Joe up here that you never heard of, that saves business, that saves money in your business. Or you find through going to maybe traveling to a trade association, you find somebody that's in your business in another state or another city, and they're able to be a peer. They're able to be a peer and provide you with that type of information. And, I'm someone that's pivoted into several businesses. Currently, I've pivoted more into real estate and real estate development or whatever. Immediately, I started finding peers both locally and out of state that are trying to achieve the same things I am or have already done it.
Would you distinguish between mentors and advisors? You see any difference there, or am I saying the same thing kind of?
I think that you're saying the same thing. There's we can always get technical: mentors, advisors, sponsors, advocates, all these different things. But again, you want somebody that's going to be providing you frank feedback, challenging you to ask the questions. Because what I found is both, an advisor, a business coach, an advisory board member, whatever, the entrepreneur a lot of times knows the answer. They just need folks to bring it out of them.
When you're talking about a mentor, someone who is giving up their time to assist you as the business owner, well, I guess as the business owner, how should you treat that mentor? What do you see mentors wanting from the business owner? Because I've seen individuals that have not necessarily respected the mentor's time, have just not been, I guess I'm going to use the term organized when they're speaking to them and stuff like that. And again, there is obviously some value in just having more of a relationship where you can have a conversation, but they need to understand your business too. So being able to share some different.
I mean, I think that what you're looking for, and I would say this in any relationship, try to find ways for it to be mutually beneficial. Okay? Mutually beneficial. First of all, those of us that are advisors and mentors, we do receive joy and fulfillment from helping others. So in some ways you are doing us a favor by coming to us. But we do want relationships to be more than transactional. If there's a way that you can figure out how to help that mentor by referring somebody else over to them, or even something else that they might have in their life, or things that they need or whatever, try to do that. But it also starts with asking, is there anything I can do to help you?
Right. Yeah. And there can be value going both ways with that. Just because you're a new owner, doesn't mean that you can't assist them too. I mean,
again, transactional relationships, and we all run into them sometimes, they get tiresome. And that's not going to be a long relationship when it's just transactional or one way, where somebody's just taking.
So are there any that you use now, or something, any podcasts you like to listen to, speakers, books, things like that you kind of try to keep an ear on, or trade information, economic information that maybe you could share?
Well, I am a polymath that I like a lot of stuff. So, podcasts, I watch Scott Galloway, Diary of a CEO. I like that. What's the lady's name? She's on YouTube. Sanchez. I really like her study of small businesses. Books, Daniel Pink. I like a lot of his books. I like Lencioni's books. But even going down to the basics, sometimes I'll pick up the E-Myth Revisited and reread that. I also like, again, you have to work on yourself as an individual. I do like Atomic Habits, written by a local guy, but a national sensation. And I could just go on and I love books, so. That's, some people have shoe weaknesses. I have book weaknesses. And I found a way for my business to buy all these books that nobody else is reading in my business but me. But
so what we need your book. You need to start
one day. I've thought about that.
Yeah. So just a couple of questions left. You've been around the Columbus area for a long time. Your family's been around in business, different things. What do you see as a business owner, small business owner, here in Columbus? What do you see the future of Central Ohio and the impact on small business owners?
Well, obviously, we are in a growing community. Okay, the number of people that are going to move here, the number of things that are going to need to be built, and when it comes down to it, a lot of these things are going to be filled, and it might be at the subcontractor level, et cetera, by smaller businesses, okay? But at the same time, I think that life for many people is very busy, and the entrepreneur opportunity provides an outlet for that. Let's say, for instance, I just heard a statistic. The average daycare bill, $15,000 to $20,000. Okay, $15,000 to $20,000. So there's a lot of, whether it be families or single mothers or whatever, that going to a job that pays them X, but having to pay out $15,000 to $20,000 a daycare may not be a workable situation. Where the situation of maybe they're in they get into some type of business that they're able to do from their home at first, and maybe even forever, may save them in those daycare bills because they can do two things at once. And so I think that entrepreneurship, and it's one of the reasons that I have, stayed in it, going at it, gravitated towards it, is the freedom and flexibility. And it's funny, when I owned the moving company, the first 7 years, my partner and I, we either opened the door every morning or locked the door at night. When I started my other business in 2013, I purposely designed the business that I don't open the door and I don't lock the door. Okay? Sounds like a little thing, but that's the beauty of independent small businesses. You can design it around your life. They call them lifestyle businesses. Sometimes some people look down at that or whatever, but I think it's great building your life around a lifestyle business.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the numbers on the sheet for the last 20 years for our Small Business Development Center, you can see some pretty impressive impact numbers on the community. I think a lot of times what you hear about are this high growth businesses. You hear about Intel, you hear about, the venture capital businesses, especially at that kind of that government level. But it's really, it's you guys that are making a difference. And you're also really making the community, because you're the ones that are opening the door. You're the ones that are really making it so that these bigger businesses can come in here and still people can have a quality of life based on the kind of things that you're doing as a small business owner. So I think that the traditional small business owner is the most critical piece.
Yeah, I really do. And then just as, breaking it down to the individual level, again, it serves as a wonderful example for your community, what you do for customers, and what you can really do for your family. And I don't mean necessarily financially. I'm talking about life lessons, seeing you operate something that's yours. I can think of, my first little job for my allowance. I used to go, my mom would take me once a week over to my father's law office on East Main, and I used to dump the trash cans, okay, to get my little $5 allowance or whatever. That put in my mind. I later on, when I got a little older, I had this little job where I would, this is dating me, where the checks would come in the mail, the checks that had been cashed, and my dad would have me put the expense checks in order in a box. And he said to me, okay, I want you to look on every check and see if this signature looks like my signature. And I actually found where somebody wrote a bad check.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And an old person, a senior person once told me, like, I used to remember your dad at your grandfather's restaurant standing up at the cash register counting the money. Mm-hmm. And so you can provide these lessons for your children in the next generation. We talk about, multi-generational wealth and everything, like intergenerational wealth or whatever. It's not the money, it's the values.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting ready to wrap up here. I've got really one more question for Otto. What is one thing that you would recommend that everybody here does? Now, you don't know what everybody does, but what is one thing they should do today? Doesn't have to be here, but they should do today to kind of help them make some movement on their business?
The number one thing is build relationships. Build relationships. All your answers to what you need to do going forward probably will come from a relationship that you gain, make, or have.
Yeah, that's huge. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up with that. I do want to mention that, again, this will be on our Ohio SBDC YouTube channel probably by early next week. along with the other small business breakthroughs. And we will continue to do this program as we move into 2025. So I hope that you all can check it out. I hope you also can get some value from hearing from folks here in Columbus that are really, truly making a difference, and many of them who have sat in the same place that you have sat. And with that, Otto, I really want to thank you for everything you've done. Like I say, you've been a huge supporter and a huge help to what we're trying to do here at the Small Business Development Center, and just to the entire community. So again, I've been privileged to kind of see your journey through this from way back in the day, and it's impressive what you've done and the way you've done it. And so again, I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for everything you've done.
And thank you for everyone coming. My email address is ottobeatty@gmail.com.
Great. Well, thank you. Great.